President.
Senator from Georgia.
Mr. President, I rise today in support of House Resolution 2560, cut, cap, and balance. I've been watching the debate on my TV back in the office this afternoon, listening to the arguments made pro and con, and thinking to myself that back home in Georgia, there are a lot of folks that I live around my house that are scratching their head if they're watching this debate. They're wondering why cut, cap, and balance is such a bad idea because, Mr. President, they've had to cut, they've had to cap, they've had to balance. The call I left before I came here to speak on the floor was from a minister and his wife that I know. They are retired. Both of their daughters are married and live away from Georgia. Both of them have been in financial difficulty. Both of them are on the brink of losing their homes. But through the counseling of the minister and their support, they counseled and showed them where to cap, where to cut, and where to balance, so they could make their mortgage payments and not lose their homes. Americans all over the country are having to do that. They've had to do it. The economic recession that we're in has mandated, and you know, there are no excuses with IRS or with bill collectors or with people who you may do business with. If you don't pay, there are consequences. America, as a country, must ask of itself what we impose and ask of every citizen in our country. I think also there are probably a lot of members of the Georgia legislature that are watching this debate, and they're scratching their head. Because in my state, in the last 4 years, we cut $5 billion from a $22 billion budget to a $17 billin budget. You know why we've cut? Because our Constitution says you've got to have a balanced budget. You can't borrow to pay for everyday operations, and you must live within your means. And as our revenues have gone down in the recession, we've had to cut. And yes, a lot of those cuts have been painful. But many of the states now are coming back. There was an article just the other day about the number of states coming back that are showing future months of growth in their revenue, growth in their income, and even looking to surpluses that will come in the years to come. Why? Because when they had to do it, they balanced their budget, they capped their expenditures, and they did what their Constitution requires. This proposal tells us, first of all, to make cuts that would materialize early on at about $51 billion, but would be a down payment on a process to continue the cutting process to reduce our deficit and over time our debt. And it has a formula for capping our expenditures in the future, going from 21.7% of GDP to 19.9% of GDP, which, by the way, Mr. President, falls within the realm of the last 40-year averages until the last few years, where we've gone from 20 to 22 to 24% to 24.6% of GDP. It is not unreasonable to ask us to impose upon ourselves a cap that is consistent with the averages of our past. And remember this, Mr. President, as we get our arms around our spending, as we live within our means, business will prosper, revenues will go up to companies, taxes will go up to us, and that percentage of GDP will give you a broader margin. It's only when you're in a declining economy, a recessionary environment where revenues go down, that caps are really hurting you a lot, because you're hurting yourself, you're not empowering business, profits go down, revenues go down to the country. And then on the balanced budget amendment, this provision leaves room for negotiation between bodies as to what the caps would be in the balanced budget amendment, whether it would be a supermajority of 60 or 67 to raise taxes. It's a realistic approach to cause us to sit around the table of Congress and negotiate what's right for the country. If it's right for almost every state in our union to have to balance their budget, to cap their spending, and to limit their borrowing, it should be right for us. This proposal is right for America. It's basically what we require of our citizens. It's now time we require it of ourselves. So I am proud to join with my fellow members of the Republican Conference in the United States Senate to vote for a new discipline for America that cuts excessive spending, caps wasteful spending, and over time allows us a roadmap to have a balanced budget and a GDP ratio to debt, a GDP ratio to expenditures that is doable, is workable, and is historically justifiable. Mr. President, I yield.